What's happening, guys? It's Nick from S2 Strategic Defense. Hope all is well. The video that you guys are about to watch is a replay from a live session that we held just a couple days ago on one of my closed group Facebook pages. If you guys want access to our closed group page, that page is for the folks who are doing our online training. You guys can check out any of our online courses at www.s2online.com. Academy. I'll put a link for that down in the description below, along with the discount code that's good for another few days. Make sure you guys check those out. Hopefully you find something that you like in there. And one of the features that you receive automatically just for signing up is access to that closed group page. All right, guys, be safe, have fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy this session. Love to hear from you in the comment section. Today, we'll go for about 25 to 30 minutes. We'll be doing some work today that's going to be a little bit stick and a little bit knife, but honestly, about 90% of this is going to apply to both. Okay, so if you guys are specific to the knife, cool. If you guys are specific to the stick, cool. Or if you just want the bigger 30,000 foot view, that's cool. So what I want to do today is kind of set some foundation out, some basic stuff that most of you guys already know, but we should constantly get back after. I'm going to give you guys some notes as well. And as we move forward, like next week or in the week after, that kind of stuff, we'll start getting more granular about the information that we're putting out, more stuff that's specific to the blade and nothing else, more stuff that's specific to the single stick and nothing else, okay? So that's kind of how we'll go about business. Does that sound all right to you guys? And by the way, if you guys see me looking down at the phone here, I'm actually just looking for your comments and such, so if there's anything that you want to ask, or comment on, something like that, feel free. That's what the phone is here for, so I'll be keeping an eye on that as we move along. Okay, all right. I'm going to start today's session. Let's start with, actually, you know what? I'm going to give you guys the notes up front, and I didn't get a chance to download it from my the manual that I'm writing for the online JKD course that I'm going to put out later this year. So I wrote it down on a small dry erase board. So let me give you guys those notes so that way you have those real. Just let me know when you guys have this down. Just say got it or you know, taken or something. Just let me know somehow that you guys have either written this down, copied it, screenshotted it, or whatever. And when I start to see those come on in, then I'll get this thing off of the screen so that way we can move forward with life. So go ahead and take a screenshot of this or however you guys want to. Okay. So you guys got those notes, and it's really important, and I'll tell you why. So let me preface today's lesson as such. First thing I want to tell you guys is that all martial arts and combative systems, the way I express it, the way I teach it, breaks down into three components. You have the artistic expression, which encompasses the entire art, the system, brings historical value, cultural value. It's a lot of fun if you're a martial artist, right? Like, you know, if you're a student of the martial arts, you just enjoy training and learning. The artistic expression really serves you well because it gives you such a 30,000 foot view, right? And then we have what's called a training methodology. Training methodology is how do we teach somebody something, a technique, a tactic, any of those attributes, and get them to develop that particular lesson, okay? You know, in the Wing Chun style, we have the Chi Sao, and the Dan Chi, in Filipino Kali, we have the Hubad. When you talk about jiu-jitsu guys, they have controlled spars, meaning they're rolling on the ground quite a bit. And so everybody has their own versions of training methodology that includes drills and a little bit more live energy-based stuff. Okay? So you have the artistic expression, and then you have the training methodology. And then the third thing you have is the functional aspect or the functional applications. And that's really one-ended. How do I fight with this? Right? That's a great question. How do I fight with this? And the truth of it is that that's going to change for every single one person. You know, if I take like 10 people, 5 of them I'm going to make into fighters, and 5 of them I'm going to make into technicians. Fighters don't always look the best, but they're in there, man. They like getting hit. They like hitting back. They're cool with that kind of contact and moving around. Technicians are like, I don't really want to spar a whole lot, but they can perform things really well. Either which one, when it comes to functional application, they do a job good. One relies more on animalistic instinct, okay, and one is a little bit more scientific. And so either one's fine, But you have to understand that when we teach information that it comes from this 30,000 foot view and then we hone in and go downward from there, okay? So we never want to start with the problem and work our way out because then all you see is more problems. We want to start from a 30,000 foot view and then start to get more and more granular or more specific as we move along. It'll serve you better. And ultimately what you get out of that is a couple things. One, you get somebody who really loves training, and then they also developed a functional aspect, or you get somebody who developed and met their goal of getting that functional aspect, and then they just enjoy sticking around and they want to learn more, okay? The truth of it is that combatively speaking, things are very simple. They're just not easy, okay? And the bridge between knowing something and then being able to do something is in the attributes: timing, distancing, line familiarization, those kinds of things. You have to really focus on those, and those are hard to quantify. And so as this COVID thing has been really interesting, because as I've been teaching a lot more virtual private lessons through Zoom and such, what I've been noticing is that a lot of people are just like, it's almost like giving a big crayon to a 3-year-old and showing them a flat white wall. They're gonna go crazy on this thing. None of it makes sense, right? They just start scribbling. They don't have the control over that thing. And so today's lesson, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys how to build a little bit more control over the weapon. I can't express this enough. You have to have good control over the weapon. Success and failure when it comes to weaponry is decided in literally fractions of an inch. Footwork is also a big part of that. We'll talk about that in a different lesson. But we wanna go through things that are constantly making us more familiar with the weapon. The more we get familiar, the more agile we can be with that weapon. And when I say agile, I mean the mind can think and the body can do. It's when the mind can think and the body can't do is when you're losing agility, okay? So we want to have more agility, we want to have more control, and we want to be able to really open up our toolbox of what we can functionalize, but what you can functionalize always roots from how you train, okay? And I hope everybody understands that, okay? So give me a real quick thumbs up or just a got it kind of a thing as we move into this next part. Okay? All right, good. I see a couple got it's coming in. Keith, how's your shoulder doing, my friend? Hopefully it's doing well, okay? All right, so here's our first thing that we're gonna go into. If you look at, and I'm gonna use a stick for right now because it's just easier seen on the camera, but this could be with a knife as well. In that first column that I gave you, well, first and foremost, that chart itself, and if you guys didn't get it, I'll put it back up in a little while, or I'll copy the actual printed version of it in a PDF, and I'll put that up later on, straight out of the manual. Okay, we're building combinations, but not for the sake of learning combinations. We're building combinations because we want to develop more familiarity, right? Because we want agility in our weapons. We want to be able to move without being restricted by, familiar. Like, you don't want to learn something in a fight. You want to learn it when you train. And so the biggest thing that I see when I'm teaching lessons, classes, seminars is people who think they know what they're doing, absolutely have no idea what they're doing, and people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing don't know how to get good at doing, okay? And so my plan is to help you guys start this out. Okay, so in the left column, or this entire chart, is about building combinations and familiarity, because what we're gonna be doing is using that chart across the board and showing you guys how you can train using that information. And there's gonna be things in there that are specific to the stick, some things that are specific to the knife, some things that are just kind of like you may not know yet, but we'll get there, okay? Be patient. All right, so I'm gonna use a stick for right now just because it's easier seen on the camera. We're gonna start off, the farthest left column where it says angles is basically our angles that I teach in class or in seminars all the time, right? So we have angle 1 that goes from the right down to the left. We have angle 2 that goes left down to the right, okay? So we have that Eckies pattern, angle 1 and angle 2. Angle 1 and angle 2. And if you remember the session that we did like 2 or 3 sessions ago, I told you guys don't do your Eckies patterns down here, okay? Bring them up so they protect the head. Bring them up so they protect the head. That fist and that long end of the weapon should pass right in front of your nose, right in front of your nose, right in front of your nose, okay? It's important to protect the brain box, okay? So we have the angle 1, and then we have the angle 2. Angle 3 is a lateral hit right to left. Angle 4 is a lateral left to right, okay? So we got angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, and then angle 5 is any kind of a thrust in, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just for reference sake, I'm going to use a knife for a second here. Same thing in front of my face, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, in my system, I teach a 12-angle system. I'm not really super concerned about it for you guys right now. 5 primary angles, the ones that we do in gross motor movement, okay? And most naturally are the first 5, right? We can slash laterally, or we thrust in. It's not rocket science. Okay, so those are your first 5 angles, okay? Then we go into column B, the one that has all the funny shapes in it. And it is labeled combined, which means it's a 2-part movement, okay? First one is an angle 1 and angle 2. It's just we put those intentionally together, and we call that the X pattern, right? The X pattern, okay? Angle 1, angle 2. You see the pause in the middle. X, 1 and 2. So they kind of flow one part into the next part, okay? Then you have the cruzada, which is the one that looks like a plus sign, which is a vertical line and a horizontal line, a horizontal line and a vertical line, a vertical line and a horizontal line, a horizontal line and a vertical line. You see any combination of those, right? So you're making a plus sign if you're kind of like shaping this out in front of you, okay? Okay, then the third one you have is the figure 8, all the vase, okay? Which is going to be led with the puño end of the weapon, the puño meaning the buttress, the butt end of the weapon, okay? And so think in uppercut. So we're going to start kind of low and right. We're going to drive to high and left, circle around, go right from low left to high right. And so this is our all the vase, okay? Now we have this smaller line, all the vase. There's a whole bunch of combinations of the all the vase. We'll talk about that in a later episode when we're focused on Kali itself, okay? But you have this motion, okay? And then you have the thing that looks like parentheses, the split circle, let's just call that. That is a circular motion returning to another circular motion, okay? Or a big circular motion and then a small one. A small one and a big one, okay? Sometimes on this axis, on this plane, right? So small one and short one, that kind of a thing. So you got the split circle kind of a combination. And the one that looks just like a dot means thrust, either thrust in with the long end, low thrust, high thrust, backhand thrust, puño thrust, backhand puño thrust, upward, downward, I don't care. It's just a thrust for right now, okay? So it's basically like our angle 5. That's the only one that really doesn't break off into 2 parts, although it can, right? So we can go one thrust and then another thrust, okay? Or one thrust and another thrust. So you can put those in combinations of 2 as you see fit. But when I make the little dot, I'm really just kind of referring to 1 at the least, okay? All right, so you have the 5 angles, you got the 5 combined movements. Now the third column that says striking, okay? This is the one that has a little bit of language in it. I really don't care about the language, but artistic expression. You should know the language when you're learning a systematic thing. For simplicity, I'll just kind of go through this. A witik is a retraction. So we go high line, midline, low line, high line, midline, low line, any kind of a retraction. So it goes 50% out and returns right back. Okay, but that's not one line. Okay, boom. Okay. Then it says lob tick. Lob tick means to follow through. Witik would retract it back. A lob tick would go all the way through. Okay? It means to follow up. Technically, if you systematically learn it, lob tick means to follow up or to go follow through. So we follow through. Okay? So witik, retract. Lob tick, go all the way through. Then you got the redondo. Okay? The redondo, 4 planes on it, 5 planes on it. We'll talk about that in a later episode as well. The redondo is the one that violates the rules of straight line striking. With the knife or with the stick, everything is done pretty much straight line. Boom, okay, on one line. So it comes on a straight line, hits and retracts, okay? Straight line, hits and retracts. The Redondo is a cycle. It means fan. Redondo means big fan, okay? And so we teach the Redondo this way, we teach the Redondo this way, we teach the Redondo this way, we teach the Redondo this way. I mean, there's a bunch of variants. We'll talk about that later. But it violates the rule of straight line and return or straight line and follow back, but staying on one plane, okay? And so because it doesn't have a starting point and an ending point, if I would tick, the ending point is at the starting shoulder. It comes out, hits, and returns, okay? And so that's the ending point. The hit is actually 50%, like halfway. Some people say it the other way. They say the end point is at the target. Boom, fine, you can call it that. I'm okay with that. The lob tick is at the opposing shoulder. So if I start here and I lob tick across, it goes to my other side. Okay? If I start here and go across, it goes to my other side. There's a lob tick, follow through. Okay? The Redondo is different because it goes through that same target over and over and over. So we hit, return it, and hit, and return it. So where's the starting point? Where's the ending point? I don't know. It just keeps going. So it violates that straight line principle, okay? A little bit about the Redondo. Okay. Crosada with the C. C-R-O-S-A-D-A. Samantha's asking about that plus sign, okay? C-R-O-S-A-D-A. Some people spell it C-R-U-Z-A-D-A. Whatever. Cruzada. Okay, cross. All right, so we got the with tick, we got the lob tick, we got the Redondo. Then we have the abanico, okay? The small fan. Okay, abanico this way, abanico this way. The secret to the abanico is that you hit on both ends. Okay, so you don't go pow and hit. You hit here and you hit here. Okay, you hit high and you hit low. What happens is sometimes people go this way and they go in the short change, usually the inward motion of the weapon because it's awkward, okay? And so we hit and hit. We hit and we hit. So you got to drive it, okay? The all-the-vase, we already talked about, that's that figure eight. It shares the same space as the combined motion, mostly because we can look at this as an all-the-vase this way. There's the all-the-vase this way. There's the all-the-vase this way with the knife. It's tighter, right? And so I repeat it here. We'll expand on the all-the-vase in a different time as well, so that way you guys can really, because it really unfolds. There's a lot of tabs that come along with all of these, really. Okay? Then you have the floretes, the flowering motion, right? We've done this before. Building speed or causing deception, okay? And normally the floretes will end with part of that Redondo. Okay? And a new term for you guys, soncretes. Soncretes is a thrust that goes this way, across the body here, or turns back around and across the body here. Soncretes is forward thrusting, but in a circular motion. So it's not thrust this way, a salto, okay? The soncretes goes around the body, It's a cheat. We use the soncretes in the long weapon, and the long side of the weapon, in the middle to a close range. So imagine somebody standing this far from me, like their head's right here where my hand is. I can't necessarily use the long end of the weapon effectively here. Most of the time we'll use the puño end of the weapon, right? Bang, and hit from here. But the soncretes allows me to make this hooking motion and still hit. Does that make sense to you guys? So much to know, so much to know. Okay. All right. So that was the column that says strike. Okay. Now comes the tough one. The tough one for you guys. Oh, let me back up for a second. In that striking side, not everything works with the knife. Okay. But let me go through it real quick. Tick works with the knife. Okay. Lob tick works with the knife. Redondo works with the knife. Abanico does not really work with the knife that way. We'll talk about that when we talk about abanicos in specific. There is stuff that you do abanico style with the blade. The all de vase works with the knife. The floretes doesn't, because what are you doing? Okay? But the soncretes does for sure. Okay? So with the knife, it works fine. And then in the final column, it says alphabet. I would hope to God that at this point everybody knows their A, B, C, Ds. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, all the way through, right? And the reason why I put alphabet is because in the first 3 columns, you have so many things. God, I gotta remember 12 angles and all these like combined motions. And then he's talking like a Filipino restaurant menu, like a, I can't remember. Look, A, B, C, D, all the way down to Z, cursive, or whatever, okay? And this is really important. A, okay? B, if you take a look, C, D, E, F, G. When you start working your way through the alphabet, A through Z, you'll cover almost every single one of those motions. All of it, okay? And so sometimes it's just easier to be like, look, man, do you know your alphabet? Shadow cast the alphabet with your weapon, okay? Shadow cast that, go through, same thing, where's my knife? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and so on and so forth, okay? All right, so you might be asking yourself, why the hell is Nick teaching us this? I mentioned at the beginning of this lesson that the biggest problem that I see for people who want to get better at knife work or stick work, or they want to be able to spar better, is their lack of agility and their lack of control over the weapon. And both of those are products of weapons familiarity, okay? And so you have to spend a little bit of time, a lot of time, going through these. You know what I would do? Okay, so this has taught me a couple different ways. I would go one from angle A, one from angle B, one from each column, I should say. So let me bring this board back up. Okay. So I got the board, okay? Let me put it in a place where you guys can see it. Can you see that? Let me take a look at my phone to see if you guys can see if this is showing up. Ah, there we go. All right. So when you guys have this board, look at this and pick out your combinations, starting from right to left. So you go a 2, a plus, a Redondo, and a D. Okay? That is your building 1 combination. You go 3, all de vase, lob tick, E. And you start doing those, right side and left side. So what you're doing is you're kind of literally going from one column to another, building infinite volumes of combinations. Okay? And so the more you do that, the better off you're going to be, because you're going to find yourself moving in certain ways and moving a weapon in certain ways that you aren't acclimated to, that you're not accustomed to. That might be something new for you. And if you can't remember that, or you don't have a chart, write things. Okay? Go back to the alphabet and say, how do I spell apple? How do I spell collie? How do I spell my name? What's my last name? What's the street? That kind of a thing, okay? And so when you start to move that way, the more time you spend, the better off you'll be, okay? Because those angles aren't going to be awkward for you. Your body's already built that synaptic pathway to be able to perform that. And you just do that same combination 10, 15, 20, 100 times, right side and left side, and then you build another combination, okay? And so like in some of my classes, I used to do this all the time, where I used to write the same chart out on a big whiteboard, and I used to have the students call something out. And so they would be moving, and they would go, angle 3, Aldervase, Ecky's pattern, and then dog, or whatever. And then people would be moving that, and then we'd mix that in with some carenza. And so what you found was people are now forced to move in ways that they wouldn't normally move. And in doing so, they start to gain control of their body and by default, control of the weapon because they're moving that way. See, there's the biggest problem. You guys think, like a lot of people, like I was having this conversation in another group, can't learn martial arts solo. Who says? Learning happens on my time. Training happens on your time. So how much do you really want your training time? What do you want out of it? You have to put it in for yourself, okay? All right, now, fundamentals of weaponry, aside from being able to move and get all those things down, right? One of the biggest fundamentals is understanding how to steer the front of the weapon, okay? Martin and Samantha are a part of this right now. They've heard it from me all the time. Keith is a part of this, they hear it from me, because this is something that I tell people always. Learn how to steer the front of the weapon, okay? The front of the weapon on the stick is the long end, the business end, right? And, well, here in Texas, we can actually carry batons and asps, okay? The expandable batons. And so maybe you should get good at using this. Plus, this replicates something, mid-length and blunt. Look around you. How many mid-length and blunt things are there that you can grab and smash somebody with, okay? Short and sharp, okay? Same thing with the knife. It replicates a lot of things like broken bottle, piece of glass, piece of aluminum on the floor, a homemade shank, an actual knife, pen, all those types of things, all right? And so front end of the stick is the long end, okay? We learn how to use that. And then the front end of the knife is obviously the business end, the blade, okay? The tip of the blade and then the cutting edge. And so we learn how to use that, okay? Now, my SIRT pistol, training gun, okay? All right, so here's something to keep, to think about for you guys, especially if you guys are concealed carry people, licensed to carry, any of that stuff, right? If you have a firearm on you. Imagine something happening in front of you that proposes enough of a threat where you feel that necessary that you have to get to your weapon, whether it's a knife, a bottle, a gun, whatever. Okay, for right now, just gun. If the situation's that bad and you draw your pistol and the threat's happening in front of me, do I point the gun back there? Or down here? Or over there? Or somewhere out there? No. Why? One, it's unsafe as hell. Forget about muzzling everybody, okay? But the bigger part of it is that if that threat is you guys, the camera, and you're coming towards me and my gun's placed out here, that gun's not in the fight at the moment, right? You're gonna encroach and I'm gonna have to start to work and try to get the gun back into the fight. If you guys are the threat and I draw and I have my gun in here, should you encroach that distance or cross over the line that I've already mentally built in my mind, meaning escalating this thing, then I could press the trigger on the spot without any downtime. Agreed? Okay, so if a firearm works that way, then what's different about a stick or something mid-length and blunt, or even more specific, a knife? Okay? If you guys are the threat, and I pull my knife out, and I go, if he comes any closer, I'm gonna shank his ass. That knife is not in position to do so, okay? That person's gonna bridge that gap, tackle you, smash your face into the concrete, step on you, take your money, take your watch, okay? But when you put the knife in the middle, between the threat and you, then there's a second thought. You do not want to encroach that space as the offender, right? Me as the defender, I don't want to let this space go. I'm going to own that property as much as I can. And so we have the knife in front of us at all points in time. Sometimes some athletic movements will remove the knife for a brief moment from the center, but other people, and that happens, you try for it not to. And so I've taught you guys how to, keep your elbow in and work the knife in front of you so that way you're not giving up and you can hide your body behind the blade, right? So I'm gonna hide behind the blade, steer the front of the knife. But you have people who out here, or they're pulling the back here, the back here, and all kinds of weirdo stuff happening over here. And it just doesn't make sense. You have to deliver a knife with speed. You don't have to deliver a knife with power. It's sharp no matter what. It's pointy no matter what. Okay? Who's had a paper cut, right? It doesn't take a lot of power for that edge off that paper to cut your finger, does it? Why? Because it's sharp. Same kind of principle. And so if you think that the knife needs power, don't do this, I would say, grab a butcher knife out of the kitchen, and instead of doing this, I want you to bang and see how much power it actually takes before you start bleeding. Don't do that. Martin, I know you. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. Okay? But it illustrates the point. How hard do you have to drive the knife? Not that hard. Right? Now, we understand that the weapon has to stay in front of us, okay? I'm going to use this. Actually, here, I'll use this. Kind of a mix between a stick and a knife. What am I training? Short swords, okay? First thing I want you guys to do is, when you're doing those patterns that you go off the chart, learn how to keep those patterns in front of you, okay? See, I'm not extending my elbow out, I'm not doing that. Sometimes I will if I'm looking for that kind of emotion, okay? But it's not every single one. That's one part of it. You gain control on how to be tight and move that blade as you need it, or stick, or short blade. Second thing I want you guys to do is what we call a metronome drill. Second thing we should be doing is what we call the inside the box drill. Inside the box, I want you to imagine at nose level, just outside of shoulder width, down, right below groin level, in this box that's kind of forming in front of me. Okay? I want you to do your patterns, build your combination, and keep the stick, the knife, all of that inside that box. Okay? So that's the first drill that you guys do. You learn how to do that left hand, right hand, no hand, 1 foot, all that, okay? All right. Second thing that I want you guys to, the third thing I should want you guys to do here is what we're going to call the metronome drill. Everybody knows what a metronome is, right? It counts the measure of time. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. Okay. Musicians use them quite a bit, right? Use a metronome drill and do the inside the box on the metronome. See, one of the big mistakes that we see people make often with a stick, a knife, a dagger, any of that stuff, is they chop. That person has way too much flexion going on, and they have no control over the weapon. That's my favorite person to spar because I know they can't move. I'm going to smash them in like a half a second flat twice. Okay? And so we have to bring a little bit of fluidity to it. The metronome for us is not about a rhythm. Okay? It's not about tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. Okay? It's not about being on the beat. It's actually about what happens in between beats. So we're not chopping and racing the tick-tock. We are moving along with it, and that means we have to slow this down. Sometimes slow it down, depending on how fast the metronome's going. And we're building these slow speed stuff. Okay? And the reason why we're doing that is because when you build slow stuff, you build mechanics, and you build exponentially more control over the weapon. And the more you develop control over that weapon, the faster you can go. And if you start to find yourself going outside of that box, doing that metronome drill, you're probably going too fast. And if you find it just too simple, you're probably going too slow. And I would rather have you go too slow than too fast, because going too slow, you have 110% control. Going too fast, you'll never have control. Doesn't matter what you mean. So I want you to spend more time having more control over that weapon. Okay? All right. Okay.